everyone? This is Mark from My Card Post, and here we are back again with another member spotlight. And today we have Jay as our guest. Jay is also known as Top Shelf Cookie Sniper Hockey Card Podcast, which is a mouthful, but I'm a big fan. We're a sponsor. So Jay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark. This is a real honor for me to be, chatting with you. Like you said, you are the only sponsor to the Top Shelf Cookie Sniper Hockey Card Podcast, and we've just had a great relationship from day one. So thank you for having me on.
My pleasure, and we appreciate you. You've been an early supporter of My Card Post. I think just joining maybe in the first 3 or 4 months. It looks like you've just recently have kind of surpassed the century mark and doing your own 100 plus deals on the platform. So we appreciate that as well. Before we jump into any of that stuff, Jade, maybe just introduce yourself, talk about your kind of hockey card focused journey, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So for me, I was born in Boston. So if you don't like hockey from a very early age, they throw you out of the city limits. So Boston Bruins are my team from day one. I think just like maybe you. Collected cards as a kid, back in the day. Didn't really pay too much attention. They ended up in the spokes of my bike wheels. Threw them up against walls with friends. As I got older, kind of left the hobby. Then around 2017, started to notice what the hobby had done since then. I really loved what they were doing with the Young Guns rookie cards, the Future Watch autos, all kinds of variety. So I started to kind of dip my toe back in around 2018. And then obviously, I think like everyone else, once COVID hit, I was in full bore. Just devoting a lot of time to it. That was really a lot of fun, learning a lot of new stuff. And then shortly after that, around 2021, started thinking about doing a podcast, talking about hockey cards. And fast forward to today, I've got a great collection of hockey cards. I got, great new friends that I've met on here. And I got a little podcast that some people seem to enjoy.
That's fantastic. So, some of us were actually kind of the more 2020, to coming back into the hobby during COVID, but you actually were ahead of the curve there in 2018, kind of getting back into it before it really exploded. That's very cool.
Yeah. And it was funny. The story behind it was I was actually on vacation and my wife went into a store in this little plaza, and there just happened to be a sports card store right next to it. And that's where I just said, well, look, I'm going to go in there for 15 minutes. And that's when I saw it. So it was kind of a weird way that I fell back into it.
Yeah. So do you remember what kind of walking into that store thinking, hey, I'm just going to go check it out. Next thing you know, you walk out with hundreds of dollars of product that you weren't planning to buy.
That was the surprise when I saw A, the variety they had, then B, what the pricing had gone up to, not like it even is today, but back then. And then just talking to the guy behind the counter, and he started rambling off all these new products for hockey, which in the past we were pretty limited. So that was kind of like a 15-minute education that got me kickstarted.
That's cool. So fellow Boston collector, yes, I'm from Boston as well. I'm a big Bruins collector myself. Let's hear from you. Who are you collecting and what does your PC look like these days?
I'm a little bit all over the place with my PC, but my main focus from a Bruins standpoint is similar to you. Pasternak's probably my number one guy. I've got, his Young Guns PSA 10. Hey, there's only 200 of them. I've got a couple of autographs. Now, I saw your autograph that you got, that PSA 10 out of 88, which we need to talk about because I am fully on your side as far as the value of that card goes.
Thank you.
Pasta is my main one, but I also collect Bergeron too and Bobby Orr. So those are my big three as far as Boston goes. But outside of Boston, I'm an Austin Matthews guy. AM34, Toronto, but man, I love his game. He's just one of those guys that I just love to watch. And then outside of him, I've been collecting a little bit more of Brady Tkachuk. Someone I know, Phil, the Loud Collector, kind of got me into that, by his knowledge, and just saw some cool cards. And, he's a new one. So it kind of rotates through the years, I guess you could say. But those are the main ones I have right now.
That's cool. It is interesting how, just our collections can evolve, and it just could be one little thing that spurs you to be like, you know what, I want to go pick up some of their cards, and
Yeah.
you just start getting into it. And then next thing you know, I mean, for me, more recently, it's like Colin Morikawa and Bryson DeChambeau, and like getting into golf cards, which I never would have thought of, years ago. I was mainly into hockey like you.
Yeah.
The other part too is I always feel bad, being a Boston collector and having relationships and friendships with people like yourself. It's like sometimes if those cards pop up, I feel like we're competing with each other to get them, so that is very interesting.
Yeah, that's the fun part when you, especially with the Boston market, you start to learn who the players are pretty quickly. And you're right. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a card that I was bidding on that when it finally sells, I didn't win. And I see the screen name, it's like, again, and then I'll message that person. But at least at the end of it all, I'm happy that it went to a good home. And it just didn't go to someone who's just going to turn around and maybe flip it. I like to see big cards go to good homes and at least hold them for a while and enjoy them.
Absolutely. And I wish I should have, I don't have it with me right now, but I should have kept the pasta to be able to show it to you here on screen. But you mentioned Bobby Orr. Do you have his rookie card? Because that's one I would love to have as well.
Yeah, no, that's one that's on the bucket list. Every time I go to that expo in Toronto, I put the feelers out. I feel like I'm getting closer. I think that's the beautiful thing about this hobby is you can kind of either save up money cash-wise to buy it, or you could kind of build up cards and progressively build up and up and up to where maybe you've got a few that you can trade for a lower-end Bobby Orr rookie. So that was kind of the other thing I really loved about this part of the hobby is you could do it with cash or you could do it with cards or the combination of both. But for someone just starting out, you can really start with, that whole $1 challenge and build that card up to where you can have a really nice card at the end of it.
Absolutely. I love that. I mean, we're going to talk about my card post a little bit later, but that was one of the, origination ideas and value of this platform is to be able to use, and I didn't even plan it. Obviously we launched this business in a down market, but didn't even plan it where, people's budgets got tighter, people were losing their jobs. But so many people wanted to make trades and use the equity in cards that they own to either trade up or trade down. In that particular case, maybe somebody does have a high value Bobby Orr card, but they want to, liquidate it into some smaller cards, and you're the right guy that has the inventory that he's interested in. So
right.
That's absolutely true. So do you collect anything outside of hockey, or had you done that in the past and just kind of, rolled into more of a primary hockey focus?
Yeah, I used to dabble in a lot of the other sports, football, basketball, a little bit of baseball, even touched soccer. But I've kind of scaled back from those because what I found is if you kind of spread yourself too thin, then it's harder to keep track of, values and what things are selling for. So for my collection, I've kind of scaled away. I'll still pick that stuff up if I think it's a good deal. That, again, I can turn around and maybe sell, make a buck or two to buy more hockey cards.
Yeah.
But I'd say right now, hockey's the number one. I am starting to play around with Pokemon a little bit. I think that's something that, we should all pay attention to because it's not dying out. It's just getting bigger and bigger. And, it's fun to go to Walmart and buy a box for $50 and, they got some pretty cool looking cards in there. So again, the kid in me just likes ripping packs of anything.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, admittedly, Pokemon is one I don't kind of know very well, but I do know it's massive. And it's heavily, evolved around like playing the game of Pokemon, I think, if you will, with these cards. And so there's a lot of value there. Also a category we'd love to see grow on my card post as well. I kind of collect some others. I mean, mainly my stuff would be around like Boston legends, so I have a couple of cool David Ortiz cards, Pedro Martinez, players like that. Basketball, I don't do as much. But yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, so how did you take all of this and decide to start your own podcast?
Wow. For me, it was when I started, again, around the COVID time, I really started getting involved in buying, selling, trading, going to, shows once everything settled down COVID-wise. And I remember one of the first times I heard, and it was the Gong Show with Josh and Troy. I think it was about episode, here we go again, 3 or 4. And I just enjoyed what they had to offer. So then I started looking into, hey, what else is out there as far as podcasts, YouTube, things like that. And I found guys like Jeremy Lee and some of the other social media guys, Coach Co, things like that. What I started to see, though, was a lot of these podcasts or a lot of the online stuff was it was long format. Like for instance, Gong Show can run a couple hours, which is great because they have a lot of great material that they're covering. They have a lot of great guests on there. Same thing with Jeremy Lee. He has, again, on the longer side. So I said to myself, I have a little bit of a attention disorder type of thing. I find it hard to sit for 2 to 3 hours. I said, let me start a, quick little podcast that's 20 to 40 minutes long at max. Talk about things that I like to talk about or I'm paying attention to in the hobby, values, prospecting, buying, selling, trading, grading, you name it. Give people my experience. Again, try to help new people out, try to learn along the way, and try to have fun. So all of that just kind of came together into about, like I said, a 20 to 40 minute podcast where we're just trying to keep it entertaining with, like you said, cool pictures. We've got AI playing around. We usually have new songs for every episode. So again, just trying to make it interesting for someone to listen to on their way to work is kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
That's great. How do you come up? So what's kind of like the journey been like, and how do you really come up with the topics of the week and stay consistent?
The journey's been really good, and it's been difficult. Difficult just from the standpoint that if you're in my mind, when I look at the successful people out there, consistency is number one. I think you got to put something out, whatever your timetable is. I decided every Wednesday was going to be my day. Again, kind of a hump day thing for people. But that's been difficult because you want to keep that consistency so people know, hey, it's Wednesday, that new episode drops. And as far as how I come up with stuff, really it's like I said before, it's my experiences. I talk a lot about what I'm buying, what I'm selling, who I'm looking for, basic topics maybe that I've heard on other podcasts that I expand on or just give my opinion. I always talk about things like, for instance, with my card post, I try to have like a my card post, card of the week. Just things that interest me in the hobby that I think might interest some other people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of it, like I said, it's entertaining to me.
Absolutely. No, again, I think the hardest part with any of this stuff is to be consistent and to not miss an episode and to keep that repeating cycle. And, maybe even recording when days you don't feel like recording, but you got to stay on schedule. And, it does take a level of commitment, which is impressive.
Yeah.
What advice would you give other people that maybe are thinking about starting a podcast, but not necessarily hockey card focused, but any topic focused?
Well, like we said, consistency is number one. But I think overall, you should have a plan going into it. Obviously, what are you going to talk about? Whatever that subject is, it has to be something that you're passionate about. If you're just interested in it, you're going to lose interest pretty quick. Hockey cards it turned out to be a passion of mine. I do other things. I play music, I play sports, but when I looked as far as a podcast, like I said, this was my passion. So I definitely think passion, consistency, and then just develop relationships in the community that you're talking about. I've learned a ton from all different people in this community. And I think that's my biggest thing I could say to people is you're going to learn so much if you just listen to what everyone else is saying. You may not agree with them all the time. You can have disagreements as long as we're respectful. At the end of the day, we can agree to disagree. But it's just nice to have that conversation, again, about something you're passionate about. But like I said, I think, and then the last thing is, for it to be somewhat successful, and this is something I'm even learning more, is you have to really be able to, I guess you could say, market yourself, like on social media. You talked about things before, like clips, things like that, just quick things that people can see what you're about, and then where they can find you to. So again, it's a lot of planning. So I know for me, I actually worked on this podcast, I would say about 6 months before I recorded one episode, just kind of getting logistics together, topics, formats, different things I want to talk about. So all those things, go into it. And then the last thing, you got to have fun. Just have
Yeah.
fun doing this, and all those other things will kind of follow into place. So that's the advice from a small hockey card podcast guy.
It's great advice. I mean, it's advice that rolls into a business as well, like my card post. Like it has to be something you're super passionate about, because not every day is fantastic. It's, there's a lot of, hard work and time and effort that needs to go into it. And if it's not something that you love, like, yeah, it'd be really easy to just like tap out and shut things down. So, that's great advice. I think for those of us that follow you on Instagram, some of your AI character development and content posts you do have been incredible. Maybe you could just talk about kind of how you're using that, and I don't know what tools you use to create those images, because they're unbelievable.
Yeah. So for me, I actually got a taste of this way back in the day. I'm going to say like maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, not for AI, but when music started to be recorded digitally. Like you could record songs, say, on your laptop and then add in, different tools, voice changers, things like that. And I remember one musician, Trent Reznor, they asked him, they said, people are using this as a crutch. And he said, well, I don't want to use it as a crutch. I want to use it as a tool to create music. And that's what he did. So for me, that's the way I look at AI. Is I don't want it to take over my podcast as far as, write the episodes for me. Yeah. I just want it to be a little bit of an enhancement. So as I mentioned, we use it for new original music for the intro and outro every week. We have, our AI, you've heard PastaBot, who, when you listen to the newest episode, there's a situation there. I'll leave it at that. A little cliffhanger for everybody.
There you go. A little teaser.
A little teaser. And then the other part of it is like the chat GPTs, or I actually use the one from Google, Copilot. I'm sorry, I use Copilot. Yeah, I'm starting to look at Gemini. Yeah. And all I basically did is I just kind of play around with it. I put in just some weird phrasings and see what it pops up with. I will say this, for every one good photo that I use, I've probably done it about 10 times, because, that AI it doesn't spell things right. It just makes things look weird or creepy. So that's the last thing you want to do, is put something out there that's, kind of weird or creepy or no one understands. But like I said, for me, it's just something to maybe grab your attention that then draws you into the podcast. So again, a tool. That's basically what I'm using it for.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like I said, I love a lot of the imagery you create, and I think it's just really cool content. Maybe something I could learn from as well. So let's talk about My Card Post. Again, mentioned you've been on the platform since the very early days, when it was a little bit more of our basic version of My Card Post in the beginning. So do you remember kind of like when you first discovered it, and what really just kind of prompted you to join the community and jump right in, and maybe some of the value you saw when we launched it?
Yeah, I remember exactly. Was here we go again. It was the Gong Show. They mentioned it on there. I forget which episode it was. And while I was listening to it, popped it up on the computer. And I got to be honest with you, and I've said this to other people. I said that first day was the introduction to the website that's probably going to have my wife divorce me. Because I check that site not only daily, but I'd probably say almost hourly. But so going back to when I first saw it, when you first started off, I just love the concept of it all. I love the idea that it was basically a card show, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from your own home, because you could buy and sell. The trading was the biggest thing for me. I absolutely love that trading concept on that website, and that's when I fell in love with it. And that's what I use the most right now on that site, is the trading feature. So that was the first in him. And then once you started adding the new different enhancements that you've done over the years, which has made it better, I'll just fast forward to, you've got the app in beta, which I'm grateful to be testing for you, because that's just an amazing tool as well, too. So like I said, I jumped on early. And the main reason was the trading. But then when you start talking about, wow, now I can sell on here, and you're not taking away X% like some of the other big platforms, I mean, that's a no-brainer in my world. So trading was number one. Low fees was number two. And then once, like I said, you started kind of putting yourself out there, talking about the site, things like that. I said, yeah, this is a guy I want to support, and this is definitely a website that I want to support.
Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. That means a lot. It's exactly, you kind of hit the nail on the head. A lot of the things that we wanted to cover in the beginning when we built this was, and I couldn't believe it didn't exist before either, because when I came up with this idea, I'm like, okay, here's the moment. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to find 15 of these things, right? And to my surprise, I didn't find any. So, I decided to build it, and I really wanted to focus on that kind of flexibility as if you're at a card show. I mean, people go to these shows, they spend lots of money to go there, to get on that show floor, to meet these dealers, and to do all these different creative types of deals. And that was like my minimum viable product, if you will. I had to have all those different types of deal types covered. And I just always felt like this could be like a community where people can build relationships and get to know each other, just as we're doing right here, right? You're RJ. You're a member of the community, and you don't have to hide behind, any sort of just, name and anonymity. I can't even say that word. From like some of the other marketplaces. So that's pretty cool. So you mentioned trade. So you've kind of been, of the 100 deals, do you kind of have a little bit of a ballpark guess on how many have been like, purchases versus sales versus trades?
Ooh. So I know the last time I looked, because you brought it to my attention that I was getting close to the 100 trades. I think I just jumped over the 100 trades. I want to say like 102. As a matter of fact, I just made one the other day, so maybe 103. Sales, probably a little less, but I'm doing it more. And what I like about, and here you go, we're talking another new feature that you've added that I really love, is that what is it? The community where you can post basically you want to buy, sell, or trade, and here are the card. What's the name of that? The feed. Yes.
Yeah.
That feed is great for a number of reasons. So this way I could see, hey, someone's looking to maybe, come off their prices, or, wants to trade, like you said, a bigger card for liquid, or it's just more options. And then on top of it, the thing I love is that you put in that same feed what every deal was. So you could kind of see every deal for every day, whether it was a trade or it was a cash deal. And that's great too, because again, I'm huge on looking at, different sites for market. I want market value when I'm looking at cards. So yours is kind of showing that in more real time. And I trust that a little bit more than, again, some of the bigger ones where you kind of have to go to secondary sites to see the actual, sale, or if it's sold. So that's what I like about, again, yours. It gives a lot of information, a lot of flexibility, and a lot of transparency.
Yeah, that feed, I got to give some, that was not my idea at first, is to be able to show the, in an automated way, show the transactions that are happening in real time. And we're only showing things at like over $100, but still, it's just kind of that real time feedback of like the different types of deals that are going down. Where before, actually, ironically, I didn't even realize that people didn't even know we had an archive. Like you could go to the bottom of the page, there's an archive link where you can see the full history of deals since day one, since we launched this. But anyways, it's kind of nice to bring them up to the forefront in the feed, and people can now like and comment on those different posts. So that's cool. I did look. I forgot. We have a leaderboard. I don't even need to ask you to guess. You are number 8 as far as trades, and you've done 76 trades. So
nice.
Almost 3/4 of your transactions have been trades. So that's pretty interesting.
Yep.
Any particular deal that you can recall over the 76 or 100 that you've done that is memorable for you? I know we've done some deals. You don't have to choose one that we've done, but do you have kind of a favorite deal that you've done, or a card that you've acquired through trade? Or
funny you say that, because I was I kind of figured we would talk about that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's when you and I traded away, right? I think you and I worked out a deal for the pasta red, right?
Yeah, I had, believe it or not, I had like 3 of them at one time, and I think I might only be down to 1 in my own personal collection now. But that would be one.
No, and actually that's the other thing I should mention too. I think you were the first person that I traded with on my card post too. So that was kind of a unique situation too. But every trade I've done on there, I've really enjoyed. I think that's why I said I love trading the most, because it gives people both sides the chance to kind of, hey, this is where I want to be, this is where you want to be, and you try to work to get close to the center. I don't ever feel like I've had a bad deal on my card post. I feel like maybe, okay, maybe I've given up a little bit more than I wanted to, but I really wanted the card. But at the end of it, it's still my decision. I'm not locked into anything on your website. So every deal that I've had is good. I would say my best ones are the ones where I'm picking up big names, like, for instance, the pastas, something like that. I've done a couple of trades recently. Like I did one where I got a Connor McDavid auto and an Austin Matthews auto, but I gave up. They wanted more volume. So I gave up a lot of cards at a little bit higher value than I wanted to, but I got a McDavid back. I got a Matthews back. So, like I said, for me, I've always said trading has to hurt both sides a little bit, and that's how it's a little bit. That's a fair trade. If you're kind of cringing and I'm cringing, but at the end of it, we love the cards. That's a pretty fair deal in my book. So, like I said, I think the most memorable one is the one I've had with you for that Pasta 10 because it was one of the early ones. But I think every one of them I've had on there with different people has just been really great, really smooth, really enjoyable.
That's great thoughts. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I've done a lot of trades specifically in the beginning when there was just there was only dozens or hundreds of people on the platform. I was doing trades with a lot of people. That one I do remember. And you make an interesting point, and it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, is specifically related to that Pastrnak and Schreinsman's auto that I picked up. A lot of times, the story behind the transaction is really hard to tell. And to your point, I love how you said it. Like both sides usually need to kind of have some sort of sting, but there's like a uniqueness to the deal that's going down. You're trying to get a couple of bigger, higher value cards, and they're trying to get. Well, maybe not trying to get, but you're working with maybe a lot more liquid cards at lower value, but they want a little extra there because, maybe there's more cards and whatnot. So, and no two deals are alike, and it's just really interesting.
Yeah, and I know, like, it was funny when that post came out about the Pastrnak that you got, and I saw the feedback, and I was kind of going, you know what, I kind of disagree with a lot of people because would you put what the value was out there? I actually did research to kind of say, hey, look, if I was going to buy that card, where would my comfort level be? And it's funny, right before the show, I actually looked it up again. And with all my analysis, I said, if I was buying that card, my comfort level would be somewhere between 2,700 and 3,800.
Wow. So I got a deal.
Yeah, I think you did, and I'm like I said, with one of these days I'm going to have to type up my thing and put it up on the Instagram page just to say this is my personal opinion on that card. I think you got a great deal from a number of reasons. Like you said, it's a PSA 10, it's jersey numbered. Yeah. He doesn't sign a lot. I agreed with you said the sticker autograph thing. I have them. I don't really love them, but I'll take them. So there's that. He's a Bruin who's an original 6. He is the guy right now on that team. And he's I'm going to say top 5 offensive player in the league. I think he's right behind the big 4. Absolutely. So for you to pay that price, look at it this way. If you're at this value now, what if he goes off and has a 60 goal, 120 something points, Bruins make a run? That thing's going through the roof. So I agree. So at the end of it, you summed it up perfectly. It's a card you're never probably going to sell. It means more, to you on the inside than it is as far as the cash goes. And I know exactly how you feel with that. So I say kudos to you on that deal. I think you got a great deal.
Thank you. I thought so too. I mean, look, I was trying to get it less, of course, but those are the numbers that we landed on, and it was what. So you showed the red prism one here. I just happen to have this one nearby. Yeah, this is the black ice out of 25 PSA 9. I think there's only 2 of them.
Yeah.
So here's one right here.
Nice.
Beautiful card. So that's the thing with Pasta. It's like there's the sticker auto type rookie cards, which are okay. I don't prefer them. I much prefer to have the on card auto stuff. Or it's like these, and I have basically the whole set, right? Which is his OPG Platinum rookie cards, which I think are probably one of the top rookie cards for him in particular.
Yeah.
So that's cool. How does kind of my card post? I mean, is it the only platform you're using? I mean, how do you just kind of see it in relation to the different types of platforms you're on? What do you find yourself, really attracted to on my card post versus what maybe the kind of deals you're doing or selling on any other platforms?
Sure. I mean, obviously the big platform that everyone knows about. My biggest issue is a couple of things actually. I don't like the fees, as I think many people have spoken about, 100 times over. So that's one. The other thing I really am starting to have a problem with is how that big platform protects people who do bad, shady things, I'll say. When you sell volume, you get the guy who says, "Hey, you never sent me the card, I want my money back. You asked for proof, and all he does is belittle you." Then he goes through eBay, and it's hard for, them to kind of take your side. So that, things like that really kind of get to me. And that's one of the reasons why I really like dealing with your website, because what I'm doing now is I'm basically saying, no more auctions. Here's what, buy it now type of thing, which you already do. I hooked the two together with Mascot, who you teamed up with, and that's a great partnership.
Yeah.
But I find myself getting away more so from, say, the big places and going more towards my card posts, for the simple fact that I find that I can make more deals trading for cards that I can then, use as liquid when I go to card shows or trade to other people. So the headaches that come with some of the big things, I mean, I still do it, but I do find that I spend more time on my card posts. And again, it's the trading for me. The trading is so big for me that I've gotten some really big cards from your platform that I would have had to, wait months or maybe years to sell on the big platforms to then get the cash to pay for those cards.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the cost difference between buyers and sellers on those other platforms is tough too, because your costs are oftentimes you got to pay more just to get the card.
Right.
And a lot of times those deals can come together a little bit quicker on my card post because, we're just super close as far as like what the buyer pays and what the seller gets. So, with your involvement with my card post and the types of deals how is it influencing a lot of your podcast and the topics you're discussing on a weekly basis?
It definitely puts a lot of input into my material. I do regularly talk about trades that I've made on my card post. I talk, this way I put it out there, say, this is what I got, this is what I gave up. I like to hear people's opinions. What do you think about the deal? Did this person maybe come out a little ahead than I did, vice versa? I've been getting a lot of feedback on that. I talk about, as I mentioned before, I like to highlight, a card that's on my card post that is just interesting to me. It doesn't have to be the highest priced one or highest valued one. It's just interesting to me. I want to, bring some attention to it to other people. And then lastly, just my overall experiences on my card post. People always have a lot of questions about it, how to start up, once they get on there, how do they do trades? How do they sell? So in a weird way, because I've been on there since the beginning, I'm able to help new people do this. And I just think all those things with the innovations you're doing. And like I said, when that app drops out there, man, these people are just going to love it. So all that stuff, it really helps me to really come up with new material or, weekly when I need it. So that's why I think, you are the only sponsor of my show for that very reason. I use, like I said, your website all the time. So that definitely is going to then be part of my experience when I talk about it on the podcast.
That's great. And we're super close on the mobile app. We're just down to like the last version of bug fixes. And, and just probably the next couple of weeks, we'll be submitting it to Apple and Google for approval so that we can go public. And I'm super excited about it as well.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, look, when I built my card post from start to scratch, it took me 9 months to build the web version. It's taken basically exactly the same for the mobile app as well. We started this process about 9 months ago, and here we are, heading into September when we'll finally release it. So I can't be pretty excited too. So I was going to ask you about that. Like, if as you're talking about my card post on the podcast, if people are asking questions, and it sounds like they do, the questions about just like how do you use it. I think for us, we take it for granted because once you're on there, it's pretty intuitive. For me, it's easy to use. I feel like that was a big thing we focused on. So like once you just get in there, like it becomes like very natural. But we forget that there's new people joining every day, and they're still trying to navigate it. And maybe I need to do a better job, and I do need to do a better job of maybe creating some content tutorials of like how to create your account, how to submit a trade, how to do multi-card cash offers, how to create your profile. And I think that would be something that I could take away as doing better.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing because you hit I think the nail right on the head that once you've been in this hobby for a while, you forget that, there are people following us that are probably learning at the same pace we did. So why not help them out maybe to learn things a little bit quicker than we did, starting out. I think overall your website is very easy to use, but I think you throw that little extra on there, little YouTube videos, instructional. Yeah. I think that'll definitely help people out.
So how do you think platforms like My Card Post and your podcast, like how can we help grow the hockey card market? It does always seem to be one that's like falling behind the other card, top 4 sports markets. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I've been asked that a lot, and one of the answers I always give to people is I don't mind where it is right now. Yeah. I look at the hockey card market as a specialty market almost, meaning that the people that are in it, majority of them really know their stuff. I learned that when I went to Toronto Expo the first time, and I'm walking around and, when you go to card shows in the U.S., not a lot of hockey at a lot of them. So you can kind of find really great deals. You go up to Toronto, they know value of their cards. So I always thought that, that's what it was. It was a kind of a little bit of a niche market, but how we make it grow, I definitely think one of the things is like you said, let's keep it friendly. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it inviting. Let's really help whoever we can, to have that fun experience from day one and not have some of the pitfalls maybe that we went through. I think that's first and foremost. I think the second most important thing is it can't always be about money on here as far as cards go. I understand, hey, I'm a capitalist. I want to make money. I don't want to lose money on cards. But at the same time, you know what? There's give and take. So don't always feel like you have to get top dollar for everything. If you can move something where it's a little bit of a win and you make someone happy, especially someone new, let's make that happen. And then on top of it, let's get rid of some of this bad press. One of the things that's really bugging me as a collector and as a podcast host is this scanning thing. It's really gotten to me that there are people out there that want to take a children's hobby and really ruin it just because they want to make a few extra bucks. So that puts a black mark on our hobby that I think if we can get rid of that. Aside from that, I think Connor Bedard helped us. I think he brought us back into the limelight as far as cards go because people who weren't hockey fans started buying his stuff because that's the hot item. Maybe some of those then, come over to our side and see some of the cool things that we see. But I think overall, we have to accept that hockey will always be the smaller market. But again, I'm okay with that because I think for me, collecting hockey, I want to know what I'm collecting. I want to have a lot of information. So that's why I specialize in that. But for someone like you, hockey is going to be, let's call it one of the 4 or one of the 8 that you want on there. And that's why I think a site like yours really helps out even someone like me who doesn't look for, say, football, baseball, basketball. Well, if I'm on your site hourly every day, I'm seeing it and I'm trading for it and I'm, buying those cards. I think that can happen then with hockey as well, too. You put a platform where basketball, football, baseball people go. Then they start seeing hockey a little more frequently. Maybe they kind of get interested too.
Absolutely. I mean, you make a lot of really interesting points, and I'm okay with it as well too, because it makes my cost of acquisition for the cards I'm interested in less. If it was, super overhyped market, it'd be a lot harder to acquire some of the cards that I want. And for people who probably don't remember, you probably remember the early days of my card posts were very heavy hockey. I mean, that
Yeah.
marketplace in the beginning was 90% hockey, then 87% hockey, and I mean, it took us almost a year to try to dilute it a little bit more, where some of the other sports were filling out the marketplace a little bit more prominently. So it was interesting.
Yeah, it was nice too when you started getting some of the big, let's call them card traders or companies on there like Morrison and things like
Yeah.
that had volume.
Yeah.
Once they started really going on, I think that definitely showed a lot of people the validity of your site, and that they could trust the fact that, hey, if there's some big names doing it on this site, then I can trust what's going on, my card post as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who are just really unlocking. I created a reel the other day, just like really unlocking the potential of what can be done on my card post. We have, one individual, Shogo Card, spent $60,000+ in 4 months. He's acquired 450 plus cards, and he's doing it to help, solve his inventory needs for his local card shop. And like, that just to me is like just a beautiful aspect of what this is about, where this is going to go. People are just going to really understand that, wow, they can buy in bulk at affordable prices for them, which they can resell for profits, and also make a seller super happy because they're not losing a ton in fees. And they're moving a lot of cards, they're getting a large deposit in their PayPal account. So it's just like a win-win for everybody. And I think we're going to see more and more of that, where local card shops historically really had to go rely on card shows in person to kind of source a lot of their inventory, because they can't buy it on eBay or these other sites that charge buyer premiums and things. It's just, those fees just take away from the profitability of the transaction. So
Yeah.
it's super interesting. Okay, let's just a couple more questions to wrap up on your podcast. Like, so what are your goals with the podcast? Where do you see it going? Do you have plans? Is it just something you're just going to have as like a little bit of a lifestyle thing and just keep it going forever? Or let us know.
Yeah, I think for me, I wanted to keep it simple because, the most valuable thing each and every one of us has is our own time. So for me, I wanted to make it that it didn't eat into a lot of my family time, my personal time. And that's just not me, like I mentioned before. I wanted it short and sweet because I see what it takes to put these big podcasts on, the time, not only with recording, but editing and what they do beforehand. So I say kudos to those guys, but that wasn't me. So this first year, I really just concentrated on getting the podcast down, recording, how different subjects. I never had any interviews on there. Basically, just really wanted to hone in my skills as far as what I was doing. Now that I'm in year 2, I'm actually going to now start having people interviews on the podcast. You are actually the first time I've been on an interview with anybody. So that's a first for me too. But I just want to get interesting people from the hobby on the podcast, whether you are a podcaster, influencer, or just some guy who likes collecting hockey cards that just wants to come on and, hey, let's talk hockey cards for 20 minutes or so. So things like that are going to start happening this year. But for the most part, it's going to stay the same. It's going to be about 20 to 40 minutes long, couple of different segments. It's going to be different every single week. With the great sponsorship from my card post, we'll constantly highlight things from the website as far as different cards, different trades, different deals. I'm even thinking about starting to throw on some deals that maybe I'm not even involved in, that, here we go again, I just find interesting and want the people out there to see. So that's something else that I think that you'll start seeing is the My Card Post Trade of the Week, where maybe I'm not even involved in it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you just perform your own little, third-party analysis of someone else's transaction. That's amazing. Perfect. So for people who are maybe discovering your podcast for now, do you have a favorite one that maybe they should go back to and start there as opposed to starting from the beginning? Do you have one in particular that is one of your more favorite episodes?
Well, if you go back to the episode 1, you'll definitely be entertained for the first 5 or 10, because oh boy, I went back and listened to it, and everybody that does this says the same thing, that you just kind of cringe on the early ones and you learn. I would say I don't have a specific favorite one. I think what overall I'd say my topics are that I really enjoy is I like doing at the beginning of the year, kind of, here are the cards that I'm really, I'm going to invest in. And then what I like to do is halfway through, let's check in, see how they do. And then at the end of the season, hey, how did I do? I
Yeah.
don't win all the time. And that's the other thing I
Right.
tried to point out is you want to show the winners, but you also want to show the losers or the stuff you break even on, because when I see, certain influencers going out there and it seems like they're making, 10, 20, $30,000 every single time they make a deal. Okay. I mean, that's possible, but I want to see the losses too. So I know what not to do. So
Yeah.
I think just, doing things like that. And then the other part of it is just getting people's opinions as far as what do you want to hear? I always leave it open that, hey, reach out to me on my Instagram account. Let me know a subject, a question, something you disagree with. Let me know, because I want to talk about what everyone wants me to talk about at the end of it all. So just being open, like I said, have interesting people, talk about things I'm interested in, and then hopefully, again, more and more people will just keep listening to it like they've been doing.
Yeah, that's great. Look, I mean, look, we're all taking L's in these transactions sometime, and it's okay. It's just part of the journey. What you mentioned kind of reminds me of like a college course I took around like finance investing, where it's like, okay, you got to go in the beginning, pick a bunch of stocks, and then see who performed the best out of the
Yep.
class at the end of the year. I don't remember how well I did, but anyways, that's an interesting thing. I kind of like that model of like, hey, let me just go out there, put this out there to my community, and these are the players and cards I'm going to track, and then see, have a little midway touch point and then an end of year touch point to see how well you did. That's
That's
pretty
it.
cool. Um, so I guess the last thing would just be like, what advice would you give? I mean, obviously you're heavily in the hockey card market. What advice would you give maybe new collectors who are getting into hockey cards, and where should they start today?
I think the first thing I've said on a bunch of my episodes is really you need to pick your lane and stay in it for a while when you first start off. What I mean by that is when I first started and came back, I was all over the place. I bought you name it, I was buying it.
Yeah.
Hockey, baseball, football, autographs. But I didn't really know the value. I didn't really know how to search out comps, how to, I had an idea, but not very good. So what I say to people is if you're coming into the hockey market, pick something you like. Maybe you like Young Guns, maybe you like Future Watch Autos or the O-Peachies, whatever it may be. Start there. Start to see like, hey, your favorite players, show them things like how you can find comps, whether it's the different websites you can purchase, the different platforms you can use, or like yours to see what things are selling for. But you need that comfort level. You need to almost be able to see that card and at least have in your mind an idea of what the value is in a ballpark. If you do that, then you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache, and you're going to save some money doing it that way rather than just jumping and buying everything. So I would say that's the first thing, is kind of pick a lane, stay in it till you're comfortable, and then start to move on to other things. And the second thing is, again, I'll keep going back to reach out to the people in the card community that you like or maybe respect. I do this regularly. I've reached out to other people when I'm looking at deals and I just want some opinions. So don't be afraid to ask for people's help, I think is the other part of it. And the third thing is, at the end of it all, you got to trust your own gut, do what you feel is right. It's your money. So spend it how you want to. And finally, just have fun. This is a kid's hobby that us grown ups have taken over. So, but
Yeah.
let's just keep having fun doing it and bring out that inner child. And like I said before, don't worry about making every single dollar that you want to. Just have fun.
Yeah. I think that's great advice, and I would probably say a lot of the same thing too. Don't just follow the hype. If you see a lot of people talk about a particular player, don't just jump in there and with fear that you're missing out on profits. Like, stick to a player you're passionate about, your favorite team, find a set that has some interesting cards, get to know that set really well, be able to kind of understand the values, pick up some of those cards, and the evolution and learning will happen as time goes on. So that's really great advice. Well, Jay, thank you so much, man. This has been a great conversation. Would just love to end with you kind of sharing with our audience here where they can learn more about you, or follow you, connect with you, how they can support your podcast. So if you want to kind of share all the different places that they can connect with you.
Sure. So for the podcast, on any major podcast platforms. So your Spotify, Apple, we're on YouTube where it's the video, but it's an audio form. So though, anywhere you find podcasts, that's where you could find us. Google us. That's the easiest way. But also our Instagram account at Top Shelf Cookie Sniper Podcast on Instagram. That's where people go and they contact me usually. And like I said before, give me ideas or just share ideas. So those are the big ones that we do. And then anywhere else, you can check out any My Card Post links, and maybe we'll be on interviews in the future too.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants to do a deal with Jay, you can find him at mycardpost.com/top shelf cookie sniper. He has 400 plus cards on there. He loves to do trades. So by all means, hit him up, get some offers in. Jay, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you joining the podcast, and we'll talk soon.
Mark, thank you so much. Take care.